Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. I have to admit, this storyline has completely changed the way I look at Willow. For a long time, I kept giving her the benefit of the doubt. I told myself she was a good person who kept finding herself in impossible situations and making bad choices out of fear. We've all watched characters in General Hospital go down dangerous paths before, only to find redemption later. However, what I'm seeing now feels very different. The deeper Willow becomes involved with Sidwell's schemes, the harder it becomes to excuse her actions. In fact, I think she may be approaching a point where the consequences are finally going to catch up with her, and this time there may be no easy way out. What fascinates me most is not Sidwell himself. We already know he's manipulative, ruthless, and always looking for ways to control people around him. The real story, at least from my perspective, is Drew. While everyone has been focused on Sidwell's threats and Willow's desperate attempts to keep everything together, Drew has quietly become the most dangerous person in the entire situation. As the old saying goes, still waters run deep. And that's exactly what I see happening here. For weeks, Drew has been trapped in a nightmare. He has been unable to fully communicate, unable to expose what he knows, and unable to fight back. Yet despite all those limitations, he has been doing something incredibly important. He has been paying attention. Every argument, every threat, every suspicious conversation happening around him has been stored away in his memory. While others assumed he was powerless, he was gathering information that could eventually destroy several people's lives. That is why Felicia Scorpio's recent efforts to improve Drew's communication abilities feel so important to me. The moment she stepped in and found a better way for him to express himself, I immediately felt that the balance of power had begun to shift. In soap operas, moments like these rarely happen by accident. Writers usually place these developments carefully because they are building toward a major revelation. The more I think about it, the more convinced I become that Drew's voice is about to become the biggest threat Willow has ever faced. The confrontation between Willow and Sidwell only makes the situation worse for her. When Willow finally stood up to Sidwell and insisted that he could no longer use her home as a hiding place, she probably believed she was taking control of the situation. She may have even convinced herself that distancing herself from him would help protect her in the future. Unfortunately, I don't think things are that simple anymore. The damage has already been done, and Drew was right there to witness a critical part of it. As I watched their confrontation unfold, one thing became very clear. Sidwell wasn't acting like a casual acquaintance or an innocent guest. He was threatening Willow. He was pressuring her. He was reminding her that their connection runs much deeper than she would like anyone to know. More importantly, Drew saw enough to understand exactly how complicated and dangerous their relationship has become. Even if he didn't hear every detail, he heard enough to start connecting the dots. What makes this even more interesting is that Willow may be focusing on the wrong problem. Right now, she appears terrified of Sidwell and what he might do next. That's understandable. The man is unpredictable, and anyone would be nervous in her position. However, if I were Willow, I would be much more concerned about what happens once Drew is finally able to tell his story. Sidwell may be a threat today, but Drew could become a much larger threat tomorrow. Many fans are understandably focused on the shooting incident and whether Willow could face consequences connected to that situation. Personally, I think the larger danger comes from everything that happened afterward. Willow may not be able to face prosecution again for shooting Drew, but there are still many unanswered questions surrounding the drugging, the deception, and the circumstances that left him unable to defend himself. Those issues alone could create enormous legal and personal consequences if the truth eventually comes out. Then there is the matter of Drew's medical condition. For a period of time, people believed he had suffered a stroke. But what happens if evidence later proves that something very different was responsible for his condition? What happens if investigators start digging through records, asking difficult questions, and uncovering information that was hidden from the beginning? Once authorities begin pulling on those threads, the entire story could unravel much faster than Willow expects. Another detail that I think many viewers are overlooking is that Drew's knowledge extends beyond his own situation. He hasn't simply been observing events connected to his condition. He has also overheard conversations involving other major players. He was present for tense exchanges involving Jack Brennan and Valentin Cassadine. He heard discussions related to protecting Willow from prosecution. He may even have information connected to larger political maneuvering taking place behind the scenes. All of that information could become incredibly valuable if Drew eventually shares everything he knows. This is why I believe Willow's alliance with Sidwell is already beginning to collapse. Relationships built on trust can survive difficult times, but relationships built on secrets, manipulation, and blackmail almost always fall apart. Sooner or later, one person gains leverage over the other, and everything starts to crumble. From where I sit, that collapse is already underway. Sidwell is becoming more desperate, Willow is becoming more frightened, and Drew is becoming more capable of exposing the truth. What makes this storyline so compelling is that the power dynamic is changing right before our eyes. For a long time, Sidwell seemed to hold all the cards. Willow believed she could somehow manage the situation. Drew appeared helpless. Now the situation looks completely different. Sidwell is losing control, Willow is running out of options, and Drew may soon possess the ability to reveal every secret they desperately want hidden. At the end of the day, I don't think Willow's biggest problem will be escaping Sidwell. I think her biggest problem will be facing everything she has done while trying to survive his influence. Once Drew begins communicating clearly and sharing what he witnessed, every hidden conversation, every threat, every lie, and every questionable decision could come rushing into the open. If that happens, Willow may discover that her alliance with Sidwell was not only a mistake, it may have been the decision that ultimately cost her the most. And if Drew decides it's time for justice, I have a feeling he will make absolutely certain that nobody involved escapes accountability. As I look at where this story seems to be heading, I can't help thinking that Drew's next move won't simply be about survival. It will be about taking back everything he believes was stolen from him. That includes his reputation, his freedom, and perhaps even his Senate seat. The rumors surrounding financial misconduct and the pressure connected to missing funds may have damaged his public image, but Drew knows better than anyone who is really pulling the strings behind the scenes. If he can finally communicate everything he knows, those accusations could take on a very different meaning. What makes this situation especially dangerous for Willow is that Drew is no longer emotionally attached to her. In my opinion, that changes everything. There was a time when feelings may have clouded his judgment or made him hesitate. Those days appear to be over. The trust is gone, the relationship is shattered, and whatever sympathy he once had for Willow may have disappeared along with it. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Drew now sees her as someone who played a direct role in one of the darkest chapters of his life. Even more telling is the possibility that Drew no longer feels comfortable with Willow being around the children. For a father, there are some lines that cannot be crossed. Once a parent starts questioning whether someone can be trusted around their child, there is rarely any easy path back. That's why I believe this conflict is becoming far more personal than politics, scandals, or public perception. Drew may feel that Willow betrayed not only him, but also the people he cares about most. The way I see it, Drew is doing exactly what many determined people do when they've been backed into a corner. He's waiting, he's watching, he's gathering strength until the right moment arrives. Right now, he may not be able to fight back the way he wants, but every day brings him closer to that opportunity. And when that moment finally comes, I don't expect him to stay silent about everything he witnessed. That's why I have a feeling the real reckoning is still ahead. Drew has heard too much, seen too much, and endured too much to simply move on and pretend none of it happened. Once he is able to speak freely and take action, whether through legal channels, public exposure, or other means, he may become unstoppable. And if Willow has been hoping that her involvement with Sidwell will remain buried in the past, she may be in for a rude awakening. From where I'm sitting, Drew isn't thinking about revenge alone, he's thinking about accountability. However, for Willow, the result could feel exactly the same. The longer the truth remains hidden, the bigger the fallout may become when it finally explodes into the open. And if Drew truly decides it's time to reclaim his life and expose everyone who helped take it from him, Willow could discover that the price for her choices is far greater than she ever imagined.